You're looking at a steering column and a complete ignition, steering lock, and key assembly out of a 1985 Mercedes 300E. What I'm going to show you in this video applies generally to a lot of models from the early 60s right up to 1995. And as these cars age, I'm seeing more and more problems related to the key, which of course controls the steering lock and controls the ignition switch. Well, guess what? This key won't turn. It just so happens I have this out of the car, and it's going to be really nice to be able to show you the three main reasons why you need to make sure your key can turn, and you're going to learn the moral of the story here. I don't even need to say it. You've watched my other videos on this problem. And so I've decided to do a complete detailed series on these issues related to the ignition key, tumbler assembly, the steering lock, and the ignition switch. Some of the problems we're running into, a lot of the parts are becoming extinct, and that's a big problem in itself. But in this video, I just want to kind of introduce you to the problem, particularly if you're new to Mercedes-Benzes. You're going to say, well, what's the big deal if my key starts sticking? Well, when the key won't turn at all, these are the three problems that you're going to have, okay? Number one, if the key won't turn, you cannot get this black cap off to replace the tumbler assembly, which is generally the problem. Not always, but it's a large part of the problem why your key won't turn. The key's, worn out, or something's wrong with the tumblers and the key won't turn. So you cannot replace the tumbler assembly if you can't get the key to turn. Number two, you cannot get the steering lock assembly out of the steering column if you can't turn the key. Watch here. See this little pin right here? That pin has to retract. You have to be able to push that pin in order to pull the steering lock out of the steering column. So, number two, I can't get this out of the steering column. Number three, the wiring plug on the back of the ignition switch cannot be removed on a lot of these older models unless you can turn the key. So I can't even unplug the wiring harness if I can't turn the key. So do you see why it's so important you make sure you can always be able to turn the key in your older Mercedes-Benz? So this is the introduction, folks. We're going to continue on, and in future episodes, I'm going to show you some of the solutions. I'll even use this steering column assembly here to try to show you how we're going to solve some of these problems of getting some of these parts out when I can't even turn my ignition key.